Well, I guess the benefit of going last is listening to what everybody has had to say. And actually, I think we've had 3 impressive thought pieces there from different parts of the puzzle. And if we're deconstructing this issue, what we're going to do, each one of those has played into what I'm going to say, so I can answer it, and then you guys can ask questions and we'll answer them as well. So Kate was right at the very beginning when she spoke, because we've been on panels before, when I say I'm tenure blind, insofar as we've got to build so many more houses that we need council houses, we need social houses, we need private houses, whether that is to rent or whether that is to own. We need that many more houses coming on board, because what we have seen for decades is not enough houses being built. So what we have seen is demand has been outstripping supply for a very long period of time. So we are now at a point where we're having to do so much work going backwards as well, just to get to where we need to be sort of now, and then what are we going to do going forward. So how are we going to do that? And then I guess your question is, well, what have you been doing for the last 9 years? So bricks and mortar and building homes is never going to be a quick and easy fix. And what have we got to do? And so there has been building going on, and I'm pleased to say in this year we've built more homes in this year than in any other year bar one for the last 30 years. So we've got that going. There also had to be a conversation with the public to understand how much house building had to be done. We do live in a democracy, so we had to get those plans in place for people to understand for the first time ever, what do we project we're going to need in this area going forward, and how are we going to do that? And we can't just plonk down a load of homes. Does this fit in with your community? Is this something that you want? Are we going to allow planning permission here, and how do we do that? And all of that we've been doing, and then we've got to say, and what is it that the government is going to put into that system? Because money has been going in, 44 billion into this housing situation. What are we doing there? So we've done that. And then infrastructure. What are those homes going to be? And how do we make sure when we're building homes at a scale and at a pace that they are going to be the homes you want in the future? And are they right, and have I got them right? So I think all of those have come into place. And then we also have to say, and who are the bodies you're going to be working with? Who are those trusted partners? So is it housing associations? Is it the council? What about Homes England? What is going to happen there? So some of it we're doing it, other bits depends on the public, other bits depends on the council, other bits depends on Homes England, and other bits depends on the actual industry itself. What have we got there? And you know what? After the crisis, the financial crisis of 2007 and 8, we lost 30% of SMEs. So we don't have some of those to come forward. We are working with a much smaller group of people. So at the same time, how do we get that industry to go and move forward? And if we're looking at house building as well, although we're going to have much more traditional, as I call it, bricks and mortar homes being built, do you know what? The rest of the world is doing it differently now. Housing is one of the last things to be industrialised. It's going to go through a housing revolution. Now, it's not going to happen overnight either, but significant moves have gone forward to make modern methods of construction, to look at modular builds, look at Sweden, look at Japan. How can we learn from that? And how, at the same time, which I think is interesting, when you are building 300,000 homes a year, I mean, that's incredible if we're going to be building that many by the mid-2020s. How do we capture that building? How are we going to seize upon that to have an industry of our own as we are learning these new methods, whether it's about safety, whether it's about beauty, whether it's about being zero carbon and eco-friendly? How do we use that to create 200,000 jobs, which is what we're looking at, and a new industry which could be worth, once mature, 40 billion a year, as much as the automotive industry? How do we make that all sequence so that we all get something out of it? homes, jobs, prosperity, something for the country, something to sell. So can we coordinate all of that? And when you look at that, that is a massive thing. At the same time, young people still want to own. Ownership is something people aspire to. So in my journey, I was in a council home. That was what we could afford. That's what we had. It was my home. It gave me security. All the things Toby talked about. And then I've rented, and I've been a private renter. That's what I got. That worked for me. And now I own my own home. And for me, that is about self-determination. That is about self-empowerment. That is about improvement as we see it, a stake in society. And it wasn't just when I started my journey, interestingly, though it did move into that, how much have you made in a week on a house? I seem to be buying places that didn't make all that money, but I get that some people did see it as some sort of secondary income. You know, I must have had an older view of looking at things. It was a kind of a saving scheme for me, a long-term 25-year saving scheme that I knew I put something in it, and at the end I'd have paid it off and I had an asset, and I could do something with that asset, whatever it was. And you know what? On that journey of that asset accumulating, when I set up a business, I could use that money, liquidate it in one way or another to go forward. So here we have, so there are many reasons people would want to own, but definitely safety and security, having something there. So now we've got all those various component parts. The reality is the market isn't working because there isn't enough homes there. So of course you're seeing distortion of prices. So of course they're being more expensive. So we are going to have to build some more. And then we're going to say, how do we, when a market isn't working, do certain things which could help it, which could ease people into home ownership. So yes, there was the help to buy. Yes, there is shared ownership, not right yet. So how do we get it so that it is right? Because it is expensive. How do we help people with rent to buy? They've got the money, they can pay the rent, but they haven't got the deposit there. So all of these different things we're thinking of at the same time. And then we've got to look at the affordability picture. In some places, these are so expensive. Of course, people are out of the marketplace. But you know what? As we're looking at all these things, we've got to say, what do young people want to buy? How do we make the homes they want? And doing surveys of my own and different things, because I'm intrigued in this. I do love actually construction, regeneration, building. Not everybody wants a family home that's out of their cost. Some people will say, well, hang on, look at co-living. We might want something which is a community in a build, which we would have some sort of apartment within it. The cost could be somewhere between 40k to 100k, but within that there will be a gym, there will be somewhere to eat, there will be different things. So let's look at housing in a different way, that it's not going to be so expensive. What can we do? And we have got to look at the cost and the building and the home in so many different ways. And I think it is breaking the price down. It is about making it affordable in many ways. If we do the eco, you've then got no housing bills. Some of those are working. So let's look at the whole picture. Let's look at the structure, and let's make sure there is in another place stability. When I bought my first home, many of us will remember this. Yes, it might only have been at the time about 3 or 4 times the cost of what I was buying, but interest rates then went up to 16.5%. So it was a difficult period of time too. At the moment, we have got cheap interest rates by which we can buy off, but actually that, again, you've got to look at distortion there, helping costs go up. So we have got to look at all of those things. And now I believe we can do that. I believe it is right that people should want to buy their home. I believe it is a journey on its way, right? There is a journey on the way there. So we talk about what have we done for young people and having that conversation. When I came into office in 2010, right, the first thing we looked at was youth unemployment. It is now half of what it was. So the opportunities there are starting. So there is a job, there is a path. Apprenticeships now is seen, viewed and deemed as a true alternative to getting a degree, that you don't have to have the debt. That was another path forward. And I think about timing, sequential timing. I look at my dad or my granddad. They might have left school, my granddad at 12, my dad at about 15, 16. And so all he ever aspired to do was own a home. He didn't have holidays because flying abroad wasn't there, and you didn't have branded clothes, you didn't have other things. The only thing you put your money into was a home, and you probably got it earlier. Now I think we have to say, how do we make sure we get the type of home we want in the time frame that we can do and still enjoy all of the things we want to do, going out, having a meal, I don't know, learning, having this experience of an existence. But home ownership is a good and positive thing to aspire to, and we as government has to look at all of these complicated issues in the round and be honest, because Tony was right. What is that honesty there that we can offer you in a time frame we can? And we need to, as a government, use tax incentives to make it easier. So brownfield sites, of which they think there are 1 million homes that we could use there, let's use that. Let's make it cheaper, easier for developers to look at. Let's do preferred development if we can in city centre areas. Let's go up 2 flights. Let's look at things so differently that we could make sure there are affordable homes for the next generation. And dialogue is key to know what somebody wants, when they want it, and know they've got a path to get there, and that's what we should be doing.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot of honesty on the panel. There was a clear sense that we needed to move to a more multi-tenure, tenure-blind situation where we didn't have monotennial deserts, as I think Toby called it. There was a clear sense actually that there needs to be a slightly more political definition of what the offer was, and I thought Henry's point about not being able to outbid Labour was very interesting. The only thing I would say is that I think home ownership, if there is a key dividing line between Labour and the Conservative Party on housing, home ownership is that line. The Labour Party has not made home ownership a key part of their offer, and I don't think will do. So the government clearly has some way to go there. And a clear sense that the market is starting to work, as you say, it's 240,000 homes this year, more so than any year but one in the last 30 years, but a hell of a lot more to do, 60,000 more to do each year. So I'm going to open up the floor, and I'll take a couple of questions at a time. We've got about 20 minutes or so